by Betsy R. McElroy at California Baptist University. Let's begin with my introduction. People cannot simultaneously have the relative freedom of a child-free union and the gratification that often accompanies parenthood, for instance. This statement in our textbook tells us about the unique feelings that are accompanied only with parenthood and how a union without children, while gratifying, may not provide the same sense of happiness. First, I would like to discuss what a family is. When it comes to the definition of a family, our textbook gives us a pretty clear and straightforward definition of what the authors have chosen to define as a family. We, your authors, have chosen to define family as follows. A family is any sexually expressive, parent-child, or other kin relationship in which people, usually related by ancestry, marriage, or adoption, 1. Form an economic or otherwise practical unit and care for any children or other dependents. 2. Consider their identity to be significantly attached to the group, and 3. Commit to maintaining that group over time. How did we come to this definition? First, caring for children or other dependents suggests a function that the family is expected to perform. While parenthood can be a unique and fulfilling thing, there are still factors that should be considered for not only your own personal well-being but also the overall well-being of the family unit. Families in the United States and around the world undertake the pivotal tasks of raising children and providing family members with support, companionship, affection, and intimacy. There are 3 major functions filled by families listed in our textbook, which go as followed. The 3 functions of the family unit are: Family Function 1. Raising children responsibly. Family Function 2. Providing economic and other practical support. Family Function 3. Offering emotional security. Family Function 1. Raising children responsibly. If a society is to persist beyond one generation, adults have to not only bear children but also feed, clothe, and shelter them during the long years of dependency. Furthermore, a society needs new members who are properly trained in the ways of the economy and culture and who will be dependable members of the group. These goals require children to be responsibly raised. Virtually every society assigns this essential task to families. By having children, we are signing up to raise the next generation of society and help them to either make better choices or do better than our generation. Family Function 2. Providing economic and other practical support. A second family function involves providing economic support. Throughout much of our history, the family was primarily a practical economic unit rather than an emotional one. Family economic functions now consist of earning a living outside the home, pooling resources, and making consumption decisions together. By beginning a family, we are entering into a contract in which we agree to these terms for the duration of our lives. Family Function 3. Offering emotional security. Although historically the family was a pragmatic institution involving material maintenance, in today's world the family has grown increasingly important as a source of emotional security. When a family is begun, we are agreeing to be a source of emotional support for our family in times of need. How have the trends in parenthood changed? Barely half of U.S. adults are married, a record low. Only about 5% of families now resemble the 1950s nuclear family of married couple and children, with a husband breadwinner and wife homemaker. Prompting social scientists to remark on today's revolution in intimate life relationships, the past several decades have witnessed a proliferation of relationship and family forms. Single-parent families. Stepfamilies. Families with children of more than one father. Two-earner couples, stay-at-home fathers, cohabitating heterosexual couples, gay and lesbian marriages and families, three-generation families, and communal households, among others. While at one point families had a traditional structure to them that we now commonly refer to as the nuclear family, they are now more diverse than ever. While gay marriage has been accepted legally by many states, it was once a hot-button issue in the United States and around the world. Here are some facts from our textbook. 1. Marriage is important to Americans, but not to the extent that it was 60 years ago during the golden age of marriage. Today about 60% of never-married adults say they want to marry. Another 25% is not sure. Meanwhile, about 40% of us see marriage as becoming obsolete. 2. A smaller proportion of people is married today. Just about half of Americans age 18 and older were married in 2014, compared to about three-quarters in 1960. About 30% of Americans today have never married, 10% are divorced, and 6% widowed. 3. Young people are postponing marriage. In 2014, the median age at first marriage was 27.0 for women and 29.3, nearly 30, for men, as compared with about 21 for women and 24 for men in 1970. Today's average age at marriage is the highest recorded since the 1890 census. 4. With some usually religion-based exceptions, cohabitation has become an acceptable family form, as well as a transitional lifestyle choice. The number of opposite-sex cohabitating adults has increased more than tenfold since 1970, and by 40% just since 2000. Nearly 40% of cohabiting couples live with children under 18 in 2014, either their own or those from a previous relationship or marriage. Unmarried couple families are only about 6% of all households at any one time, but more than 50% of first marriages are preceded by cohabitation. 5. Fertility has declined. At 1.85 in 2013. The total fertility rate, TFR, the average number of births that a woman will have during her lifetime, had dropped by nearly 4% since 2009 after a high of 3.6 in 1957. The TFR has been at just under 2 over the past 25 years. A society requires a TFR of at least 2.1 in order for the population numerically to replace itself, so the current TFR is below replacement level. 6. Particularly among college-educated women, parenthood is often postponed. What are some advantages to parenting in the 21st century? In general, parents now have more education and are likely to have had some exposure to formal knowledge about child development and child-raising techniques. Many fathers are more emotionally involved than several decades ago. Despite media attention to street crime, fewer children are exposed to violent crimes today than 20 years ago. Cell phones and social media allow parents and children to keep in virtually continuous contact and make being in touch with other family members far more likely than a generation ago. The Internet offers information for parents dealing with just about any situation. The technological factors that accompany raising children in the 21st century provides us with many comforting and beneficial tools to help keep our children safe and educated. However, we can read in Lindbeck and Ninneberg that we model altruistic parents' economic incentives for instilling such work norms in their children. What are some challenges to parenting in the 21st century? 1. In our society, the parenting role conflicts with the working role, and employers typically place work demands first. A majority of parents worry about juggling work and family demands and wish they had more time with their children. 2. Today's parents raise their children in a society characterized by conflicting values and points of view. Not only parents but also schools, peers, television, movies, music, and the internet influence children. You may know parents who have responded to this situation by homeschooling their children. Concerns about outside influences may be greater for parents whose values differ from some that they encounter in the United States. 3. Although lots of parenting advice is useful, the emphasis on how much parents influence their children's health, weight, eating habits, intellectual abilities, behaviors, and self-esteem can be overwhelming. Furthermore, experts' advice can be contradictory. Some experts advise against children sharing a parent's bed, for instance, while other experts find bed sharing okay. 4. Today's parents are often sandwiched between caring simultaneously for children and elderly parents. Although caregiving can increase life satisfaction, stress builds as family members juggle employment, housework, childcare, and parent care. 5. Over the past 50 years, parenting has become one lifestyle choice among many, and society-wide support has diminished for the child-raising role, once taken for granted as central. For instance, as a declining proportion of Americans are raising children, some communities show less willingness to support publicly funded child-centered facilities and programs for children.